Okay, so ready to dive deep into another UFO mystery. Today, it's United Airlines Flight 105, July 4th, 1947. Fireworks weren't the only things lighting up the skies that night.
Yeah, no kidding. And this one's fascinating because it wasn't just some random person seeing something strange. We're talking about a whole flight crew, experienced pilots, a stewardess, people whose job it was to know what was up there.
Right, exactly.
Right.
So we've got Captain E.J. Smith, First Officer Ralph Stevens, and Stewardess Marty Morrow. Their flight was from Boise, Idaho, heading to Pendleton, Oregon. Pretty routine flight until it wasn't.
Right around 9:04 p.m. Mountain Standard Time, First Officer Stevens is the first to see something. He thinks, at first, it's just some other aircraft even flashed the landing lights, but pretty quickly they realize this is not like any plane they've ever seen.
What do they see? What makes them think it's something unusual?
They described seeing 4 or 5 objects, flat and circular, flying in a loose formation, and these weren't small. Captain Smith actually told the press later they were bigger than aircraft, thin, with a smooth bottom and a rough top. One of them was even significantly larger than the others.
So they're seeing these objects for a decent chunk of time, right? It's not just like a quick glimpse.
Definitely not. They observed these things for 10 to 15 minutes, following them for almost 45 miles. And get this, none of the 8 passengers on the plane saw anything. It's like they were invisible to everyone except the crew.
You'd think someone would notice something strange out the window. Did they try to get closer or figure out what they were?
Yeah, the crew tried to get closer, but whatever these objects were, they either just sped off, leaving them behind, or they seemed to disintegrate right in front of their eyes. Now, think about the timing here, too. This was right smack in the middle of the 1947 flying saucer craze.
Oh, right. That's just 10 days after Kenneth Arnold's famous sighting of 9 disc-shaped objects near Mount Rainier. Which kind of kickstarted the whole thing, right?
Absolutely. That's where the term flying saucer even came from. It was Arnold's description of their movement, like saucers skipping on water.
And then you had the Roswell incident just days later with that whole initial story about a flying disc that the government quickly changed to a weather balloon.
Right, and don't forget the strange stuff happened over at Maury Island, too. It was a truly bizarre summer. But back to Flight 105, I mean, these are pilots. They spend their lives identifying aircraft, so how likely is it that it was just an illusion?
Yeah, pure illusion, as the official explanation seems. I don't know.
Well, that's what they came up with. The Air Materiel Command, they did an investigation and concluded it had to be ordinary aircraft, balloons, birds, or pure illusion. They blamed it on the sunset conditions, possibly.
The sunset. The culprit of many a strange sighting.
It's a classic, right. And honestly, that conclusion kind of aligns with what came later from the government on UFOs. You know, those official projects like Project Sign, Project Grudge, and the famous Project Blue Book, they really lean towards finding conventional explanations, especially during that wave of sightings in 47. They even admitted that the power of suggestion might have played a role back then.
So everyone was seeing saucers because they were expecting to see saucers.
Possibly. But here's where the story gets even more intriguing. So Captain Smith and First Officer Stevens, they actually ended up connecting with Kenneth Arnold. They shared their experiences, and there are even pictures of them together.
Wow. A real-life UFO support group.
It was a time when people were trying to make sense of these extraordinary events. And get this, Arnold even got Captain Smith involved in investigating the whole Maury Island incident. You know, the one with the falling debris and the Men in Black stories.
Ah, yes, Maury Island. Talk about a weird one.
In the end, they basically concluded that the debris there was just ordinary junk, and the whole incident was probably a hoax. But it's interesting to see them teaming up like that. They were clearly looking for answers, for some kind of validation.
Makes you think about those early days of UFO sightings and how people were trying to make sense of it all. Were they taken seriously, or were they just dismissed as kooks?
Well, it was a mixed bag, but the Flight 105 report actually got quite a bit of attention. I mean, these were airline pilots. That gave their story a certain level of credibility. Even a journalist back then wrote that the report was shaking the incredulous. You can imagine how that stirred up public opinion.
And it must fueled all sorts of theories.
Oh yeah, from secret government projects to, of course, extraterrestrials. There was a sense that maybe there was a deeper meaning behind these credible reports, something more authentic than just misidentified weather balloons. But the official explanation remained pretty much the same: misidentification and those tricky sunset visuals.
But if you think about it, the pilots themselves ruled out normal aircraft because of the shape and the size of what they saw.
Yeah, and then you have Arnold who did that reenactment flight but didn't see anything unusual. But of course, it's pretty much impossible to perfectly replicate the exact conditions of that day. The atmosphere, the light, everything plays a role, so it's hard to say for sure.
So where does all this leave us? What's the legacy of this 1947 sighting?
Flight 105 remains a pretty significant event in UFO history. You'll find it mentioned in books, documentaries. Arnold even wrote about it in his book, The Coming of the Saucers. And there's a documentary called UFO that features it. It's considered the first major sighting reported by professional airline pilots during that whole crazy summer of 47. And it's still talked about, especially in the Pacific Northwest, when people discuss historical UFO encounters.
So a lot of unanswered questions still. Fascinating to see how even after all these years, it still holds up as one of the more credible UFO sightings out there.
Definitely. And it makes you think, considering who these witnesses were and everything that was going on in 1947, does the official explanation really cover it all? Or is there something more to this event, something about aerial phenomena that we're still trying to understand?
A great question to ponder as we continue to explore these mysteries.
Ah.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, folks. Until next time, keep looking up.